Okay, I am here with the star of HBO's Chimp Crazy, the one and only Tonia Haddix. Tonia, thank you so much for joining the Sarah Fraser Show.
You're welcome. In fact, I appreciate you very much for even giving me the invite. After speaking with you, I was so excited to do this one.
Well, I felt for you for a couple reasons. First of all, Chimp Crazy, I will give Eric Goode this. He's a heck of a docu-series maker. I mean, he knows how to make great TV.
Yes.
I have a problem with Chimp Crazy from the beginning because to me, Eric's whole point about whether chimpanzees should be in captivity or with private owners or not is just nil and void because he falsely represents himself to you in this documentary. And to me, that's the beginning and the end because how can you really make any points that you're trying to make when he really set you up with this kind of proxy director, Dwayne Cunningham?
Exactly, exactly. And especially when they got exposed by PETA, by them putting the phone conversation that they shared with PETA online to everybody and their brother. And I found out, and Rolling Stones helped me do some face recognition to find out that it was indeed Eric Good Entertainment. And that really blew things because then for us to move forward, I didn't trust him at all, and it wasn't there. It just wasn't like it should have been.
Well, before we get into all the details, everything that's been happening to you and an update on Tonka and what this documentary represented correctly about you and then incorrectly. I want to just go back for a second. I mean, HBO has come out and said this is their highest rated documentary in 4 years. McMillions, which was about these
Mhm.
people that scam McDonald's, was 4 years ago, was highest rated. Since then, this is the most talked about documentary. So, can you tell people overall, how are you doing? Like, how are you taking I guess, I don't know if you do read anything online or the positive, the negative. How are you feeling?
Horrible. Basically, I feel like it's destroyed my life, to be honest,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, because I have a lot of people threatening me, um, but physical harm. They threaten to burn down your house. They threaten so much crazy stuff, and a lot of people, especially extreme to AR people, just don't believe that animals should be kept in cages, and so they're sending me horrible, horrible, nasty messages, and so I people are attacking my personal Facebook page and they're trying to get it shut down. So just a lot of attacks in different areas and different aspects of my life. So I just pretty much have recluse myself.
Mm. Uh, Did you anticipate that at all? I mean, did Eric give you a heads up? Did anybody in your life say, brace yourself for what's going to come by putting this out?
Jeremy McBride, Eric Good's partner, did try to prep me for that. One thing I can say about Jeremy's been really good to me. In the sense that he has tried to guide me into making sure that I make the right decisions, and, especially on interviews and things of that nature. And he also just, because I begged them multiple times, and I have text where I have begged them to please don't do this documentary and don't put it out there because it's going to run my life, and that I don't want to be in the limelight, never have wanted to be in the limelight, and so they knew my feelings, they knew my fears, they knew everything in way beforehand. And so he did has been very courteous to reach out to me and try to help me and try to make me feel okay with what's going on.
Have you seen any of the love? Because I will tell you, people are obsessed with you. Now, I see all the memes, all the positive. People love your wigs, the makeup, the whole thing. A lot of people will start their statements like, okay, I might disagree with her owning chimps, but I'm obsessed with her. Have you seen
Oh,
any
really?
of the
No,
love? You haven't?
no, I'm not.
Yeah, Tanya, I will email you some of the positive stuff. You have writers from like Newsweek, these guys. You're like, I feel like you're going to become a gay icon. So many men and women, and they're sharing that picture of you with the numbing, all the white numbing stuff
Uh,
on your lips, and people are like, they love you. I mean, Tanya, your look, I'm obsessed too. This is what I was drawn to you. First of all, I could tell that you have a sweet, sweet heart. Whether people agree or not with chimps being privately owned,
Right.
and that's the thing with PETA, right? I get their overall message. I think a lot of people are not capable of owning an exotic animal, but they're just their hard line on everybody is where it bothers me so much.
And that was my whole fact, and some of the conversations I've had with Jared Goodman, the attorney with PETA, is, I understand your point of view and I respect that, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. But let's think about this. If we think that chimpanzees should not be in private sector in the United States, let's start with some legislation and let's start passing some bills. Let's start doing some things to prevent that from happening. But in the interim, don't hurt the kids that are already in that situation, that has been raised in that situation. So let's come to a compromise that there just is no more of those if that's how they strongly feel. But let's not hurt the kids that they're going to hurt by yanking them out of the only home that they've ever known and the only lifestyle that they've ever known. And I just seen an article, and I think you and I talked about it whenever you called me, but one of the caregivers that was in People magazine shared that Tonka was so humanized when he first came there that he did not even do the politics in a group setting. So that tells you right there that what I'm saying is factual. He was humanized. And so I know some people don't agree with it, but that's the way he was raised for 30 plus years. I did not do that to Tonka. I only knew Tonka for about 5 years. So I only was wanting to carry on that legacy and let him retire in peace with people that loved him and would let him, live the life that he's always lived. And then when he died, I understand if they don't want any more that way. And I would even be, I don't want to say supportive, because I think chimps can be if they're housed appropriately and if they're taken care of. And if you're willing to dedicate your whole life, because it is a lifetime commitment. And it's huge. And I agree that a lot of people could not do that or would not do that. And so then that becomes a problematic situation futuristically, plus their strength and stuff. I get all of the factors. Trust me, I'm not naive to it. And even though I may sound kind of crazy, I do realize. And so not everybody deserves or should have a chimpanzee, but there are the few exceptions to the rules that I think that just because, like you said, it's a hard line, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be a hard line. I think it needs to be a case by case based
Well,
situation.
and people need to be reminded that in the state of Missouri where you live, it is legal to own exotic animals. You are not doing anything illegal. So, of course, if PETA
Yeah.
wants to, and I'm sure they are, lobbying to end that, and I believe they did in Oregon State where the buck story was, I think people
Yeah.
were grandfathered in, which, I mean, my God, right? We've seen that happen to people, whether it's your home built on a certain proximity to water, and now there are new laws that don't allow it. But they usually grandfather in certain people to,
Right.
that are already existing within the state law, which you did. Before we get more into that and letting you really tell your side that wasn't shown in the documentary, can you go back? Because it's not until episode 3 that we really learn about your background. I mean, can you tell us a little bit like how you grew up? Did you always love exotic animals? And I didn't think that they highlighted it enough, but you were a foster mom for which is a huge commitment, and just I think that says something about people's heart. So, can you give us like some background of who you are, how you grew up? I know you got married young, but your story?
Sure. I grew up in Missouri, and then we traveled all over the different states for quite a number of years. My father was a military person. He was in the army, and my mother was a nurse, slash she did waitressing and that type stuff growing up. So we just grew up modestly. I have two siblings, two younger brothers, two older sisters, and so we kind of had a big family, but we were all close growing up. And then my sisters had nieces and nephews, and all of us went to my mom's for Sunday dinners. And then I ended up with two children, one that was adopted, and then one that is a biological son of mine. And so basically, I went to nursing school and I became a nurse, and I did that for most of my whole professional life up until I ended up starting to get people's animals, like sick animals, and people wanting me to take care of their bottle babies and stuff. And I had a capuchin monkey my own self just as a pet. So everybody kind of got to know me as a monkey nurse. They'd call me, there's that monkey nurse. And so little by little, I just started taking care of everybody else's animals. And I ended up getting a Down syndrome capuchin that had no palate, and they didn't think he'd live at all. And I got to raise him for 4.5 wonderful years because he was an amazing Down syndrome little boy. And so with that said, I just have always been a caretaker. It's just something that's inherent in me, but my mother was too. And I have two sisters that have definitely caregiving abilities, and that's just their nature. And so I started fostering whenever I was 19 years old. I worked at a daycare, and there was some foster kids that were special needs kids that had trachs and different medical issues. And I just loved that. So at 19, I became a foster parent for the state of Missouri. And I just started taking in kids. And my first one was a 10-year-old girl. And then it ended up being, I had a couple of 16-year-old girls. And so I just took in medically necessary or temporary placements or things like that. And so it just grew. And I stopped that whenever I got a primate because, they didn't feel that it was safe for kids to be in a home with a primate. So, and I had always wanted a monkey, but I waited until my kids got older and that they, would be able to be around them and that type stuff. So, and then I just started dealing with monkeys, and then ended up that I got a broker's license, and I'm not even sure, I think that was 2016, but I wouldn't concretely say that. And it just expanded from there. I mean, it just became big. It became very big. People just had a lot of animals in need that needed to be placed and stuff, and
Oh, yeah.
that's where it took off.
Do you agree with Eric's portrayal in the documentary? I mean, he kind of alludes to you women as monkey moms that are just replacing human children with monkeys, and really kind of makes it like it's an obsession. You guys love to dress them up and put makeup on. I mean, do you think that's true of other monkey moms? Like, and have you thought about that in your own life? Do you feel like you're trying to fill a void? I mean, he kind of portrays you that way.
Eric has been around some, I guess, because you could see some of the videos and stuff. And there is a community of monkey people, but all of them come from different walks of life, and they have their own strong personalities, and they also have their own ideology on, how they should raise monkeys. And some of them don't believe in wearing any clothes. Some of them dress them to the nines from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. So it's very diverse in that community. So to say specifically that it's just that they're trying to replace children, I that some of them, yes, but not like an overall view of all the monkey people that I know of, and I know a lot. I would say that really doesn't classify that specifically. No.
Well, it's no different than dog parents, you know? I mean, now
Right.
dogs are domesticated and
Yes.
people are allowed to own a dog really without much of barrier to entry, right? But I mean, you see people, they have strollers now for their dogs, they have backpacks,
Correct.
cat backpacks, and they paint their
Clothes.
nails and I mean, really, you guys,
They
so I
dye
thought
their
that was
hair colors at the beauty
I
shop. I mean,
same with horses. I mean, so I didn't see I mean, he was trying to make a case for that, I guess, but I didn't see that any different than what you see with dog parents now. But talk to us about, what do you think, or do you think that the documentary misrepresented you in any way? And if it did, how?
oh, 100% it did. Because if anybody knows how I am, I didn't know Connie Casey whenever I went up there. I just had reached out to her to buy a baby chimp because I had had capuchins, and it was legal to own one in Missouri, and I wanted a baby chimp. And whenever I reached out to her, I had no idea that she was in a lawsuit with PETA, even though we lived in the same state. But her attorney had asked her to please, keep it as quiet as possible. So nobody that I knew of knew she was being sued. And so once I got a hold of Connie via Messenger Facebook, she asked me to call her, and I bet that Sunday afternoon, I'll never forget it. It was a Sunday late afternoon. And I bet I talked to her 2 to 3 hours. And she was just literally into tears, sobbing that they were taking her kids away after 50 plus years of owning chimpanzees, and that she didn't have money for an attorney and she needed some help. And she was behind on her interrogatories and her stuff like that, and she had no idea how to get an attorney and that type stuff. And so I felt so horrible for this lady. So I said, look, I'm going to help you. I said, I'm going to come up there next Sunday. And I said, I'm going to get a friend of mine that has a contract license in St. Louis who owned a capuchin, and have him help me figure out how much it's going to cost to get your facility up to snuff. And we will do some fundraising, and we will kind of get things going to help Connie get her, save those chimps. And so that's how it started. I had, yes, I was into monkeys. I love primates, but I just wanted a baby chimp.
Wow. Uh, and obviously we see in the documentary the downfall of Connie, right? The chimps are taken away. And by now everybody knows, obviously you guys had taken Tonka and you keep Tonka for a while. Um, how are you and Connie today? I mean, does Connie own any chimps now? I mean, do you have any, I guess, resentments towards her with what's happened?
No, Connie's the sweetest lady you could ever meet. And it was sad for her to have to go through that. And my whole point in going up there was to try to save those kids for her, to let her have her legacy until she dies. And then, after that, they were just going to be moved to a facility that I built and just raise them until they die. But I don't have any animosity toward Connie. Now, you know how when you go through a grieving process of losing, especially Tonka, because he was so dear to me, you want people to stand behind you. And when you know a person's personality and they're not strong themselves, how can you expect them to stand behind you? But there is sometimes to where you'll get a little upset that somebody doesn't stand up for you for once. You went up there to help a cause that wasn't even your fight, and sometimes you just wish you had more backing than what you have. But I also too have to look at the reality of things, and I analyze everything because I'm very analytical, and I realize ultimately at the end of the day, Connie can't stand up for herself, so there's no way she could stand up for me. So you have to learn that about a person's personality before you pass judgment. And so, or at least I hope people do, so that it keeps you on the straight and narrow your own self on your opinions. And so, no, I talk to Connie often. Connie sends me messages asking me if I'm okay, that type stuff. So no, no, her family was like a family to me. I lived up there right on her property, and we ate dinner almost every night together. So no, I don't have any animosity toward her at all.
All right, well, let's talk about Eric Good, the director. Do you have any animosity towards Eric? I mean, tell me about tell us about the big reveal. Then we'll get into Tonka. I mean, because you are, I mean, it was a trip watching that scene of you. I mean, of course, Eric's a genius, right? Putting the music, the cranberries, do you have to let it linger? Watching you and your husband, Jerry, haul Tonka into a Holiday Inn Express. I mean, it's like,
And that was fake. That was actors. That was a reenactment. That was not me and Jerry doing that. That's why if you look at the scene, I never wear ball caps, and anybody knows me knows I don't wear hats. And so that was just a reenactment so that it could be. That's what I said. They made it more dramatized and more dramatic than
yes.
what the situation was. And so it's cheap. I call it cheeky. It's just cheeky because if anybody knows the real truth, I mean, it's at the last minute type thing. You're just trying to do what you can do to keep doing to save Tonka. And so it was not like what they portray it to be. So to me, it's just kind of silly. I just have to laugh sometimes because I'm like, no, that didn't even happen like that.
Take us back to the moment. We obviously see it on the documentary, but take us back to the moment. Do you recall the day you and Jerry, your husband, found out that Dwayne was just this stand in producer? And then this guy, Eric Good, who basically is known to the exotic community because he famously did Tiger King. So everybody's guard was up, it sounds like, within your exotic community about him.
Very.
Tell me the day. What was the truth of when he revealed himself to you? What was that like?
He didn't reveal himself to me. What happened was U.S. Marshals showed up at my door banging on it at like 7 something in the morning to collect Tonka. And I was in bed, sound sleeping, and Jerry was in the shower. And Jerry said, the U.S. Marshals are here. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, maybe that fugitive that's downstairs. And I was like, oh shit. So I get up And I get dressed real quick. I mean, I throw on clothes and I'm heading down to the basement to get Tonka out of here. So I go to his cage and I stop and get a bottle of Powerade, and I get his cage and I get his hand, and I'm walking him out. And I had already had my friend ready to bring her van, and we were going to walk through the woods, and she was going to pick me up, and I was getting him out of here. And so what happened was we have blinds that were built into the windows on the door, and I happened to see movement of feet out there, and I knew if I opened that door, one or two things were inevitably going to happen. And that's that if the U.S. Marshals tried to accost me, Tonka would have got after them to protect me, because he would have protected me at all costs. And that would have been a horrible situation. Or B, that they would have shot him, being scared. And I could never watch my boy be shot in front of me. So I just turned around and I just had him go back in his cage with his Powerade. So, and I just locked him back in. So then I went upstairs and I seen the U.S. Marshals going toward my bedroom. So I just walked out the door and started walking down the road. And so U.S. Marshal that was coming was late. And so he stopped me on the road and he just said, "Are you Tonia?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You need to come back to the house with me." And so I did. And so that's how I found out, because Rolling Stones, Cheyenne, I can't remember her last name, but Cheyenne, one of the Rolling Stones,
Writers or probably,
writers, sorry,
yeah,
thank you. Yes,
sure.
writers went ahead and got a hold of me, and she's like, "Hey, do you know that that's Tiger King in your house?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Get them out." And so did my friend Cass. She said, "Tonia, get them out of your house." Well, luckily they were here at Osage Beach, but they were not in my home at that time, but they were waiting for that great grand ending to their story. And that's facts. And so they even parked out right across the street filming, because they knew they were not welcome on my property. But I did get a hold of Dwayne, and I said, at first, you got to realize it took me a while to really figure it out, but she helped me do face recognition.
Yeah, on
And
photos,
she,
right? Or
yes,
okay.
yes. And she sent me one at a time and said, "Do you recognize this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the film or the camera guy." And she's like, "That's Benji. He does blah, blah, blah." And then we went through James, and then we went through Dwayne Cunningham, and then we went through all of them to figure out they were all related to Eric Goode somehow, some way.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's how I found out.
Wow.
Not because
Eric never
Eric
had the balls to just call you and say, "Okay, by the way, we've been doing this and this was my intention." Did you guys ever have that, you and Eric ever have a sit down and have that conversation?
Yes, months later, after all the stuff went down and they had taken Tonka out of here, and you kind of get through your anger stage, they had been trying to call me and call me, had Dwayne call me and call me and call me and call me. But see, in the interim, PETA sold them out. This is what's funny. You play with the devil, which is PETA, and you think you're going to get a grand explosion and a grand exit to your documentary, so you can make money and to make it the greatest, bigger than Tiger King type thing. But what happened is they sold them out, and they actually posted the conversation between me and Dwayne on social media. So
Mm.
then that sold them out. And so when they first initially was calling me, they didn't know if I knew or not. And then he says, "Well, I don't know if she knows or not." And so then Dwayne's like, "Leave it alone." So basically they found out, because I called Dwayne and I gave him an earful of what I thought of him, because you know what,
I
Dwayne and I
know.
became close friends. I mean, I could tell him anything I thought, because he was an animal person and he had worked for Pam Rosaire and worked with the Chimps, and he knew
And
those
he'd been
names.
in jail, by the way,
Yeah.
or
And
what was it? Turtle
I found
trade
that out.
or
Yeah,
iguana
I found that
trade or
out.
something. I
So,
mean, how are you and Dwayne? I mean, that was such a betrayal. I don't know how these people can do this for now. I mean, I got some follow-up questions because I've read some articles. Eric's doing interviews too.
oh, of course.
Now, Eric says he's not really on PETA's side, that he's an animal conservationist, but he doesn't really agree with everything PETA does. And in fact, I just read an article where Eric, and I want to see if you think this is true. Eric feels that, he and Dwayne's relationship obviously dwindled because Dwayne really felt bad about what he had done to you. And Dwayne really believes, or at least Eric Goode alludes to this, that Tonka should still be with you. You think Eric's being sincere when he says that Dwayne thinks Tonka should still be with you, and Eric's intentions really are not to help PETA?
I do believe Dwayne is an animal person, and I do believe he's seen me with Tonka, and I do believe he does believe in private ownership, and I think he does think Tonka should be with me. I have no doubt about that. And do I think he feels bad for his betrayal? Yes, I do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, either money or a highlight of possibly being able to do more stuff with Eric has overran that personal feeling and that personal feeling sorry stuff, because he continued. And furthermore, he changed, his personality changed. He was totally different with me after that. So I I do believe he is sorry, but I think that there's some stuff there that ultimately, at the end of the day, a dollar comes before feeling bad for betraying somebody.
What about Eric? Do you think Eric has any remorse? Do you think he's not really on PETA's side? He's more on the side of kind of finding these owners that really no longer should be owners of exotic animals. What do you think his intentions were with you?
Well, like I told them from the beginning, this is not your story to tell. I did not give you permission to tell this
Mm.
story.
Yeah.
And so for them to assume that it's their job or their duty, then to me that speaks volumes about where Eric Good stands. And not only that, but he'll text me, because like I'll see an interview that he did and I'll be like, well, how come you would say this, or how come you do that? And he always comes back to me with excuses like, well, they cut it off, or they didn't say it, or didn't let me finish the conversation, or whatever, because he's like kind of dogging me and dogging Tonka living with me and that type of stuff. But he tells me quite the opposite. He tells me that Tonka should live with me and that Tonka should do this or Tonka should do that. And they feel bad about what they did. But ultimately, at the end of the day, then you see other stuff out there, and he talks out of one side of the mouth to me and then another side in public.
I don't know the answer to this, but have any attorneys reached out to you? I mean, it does seem like you were completely duped. I don't know if you have any rights to a lawsuit against HBO or Eric Good, but I mean, and maybe you agreed to continue after they showed themselves. I don't know. But I mean, it does seem like a lot of the footage was taken of you under a different pretense
Right, it
or
was, and I think I do have a leg to stand on, but I did agree to continue working with them after a few months, and Dwayne reached out to me and asked me if I would give Eric a chance and would go meet him, and I did go meet Eric, and I did consent to continue, but for a couple of reasons. One of them is they made some promises to me, and they were promises that I would have done anything for to get, and that was a visit with Tonka,
Hmm.
because that was like the ultimate dream for me. And I was like, if they can dangle that carrot and they can make it happen, I'm all about it. And the other is the premonition that I knew for a fact that in the beginning they were going to make a new Tiger King, after I found out that it was Tiger King, Eric Good from Tiger King. And then they changed the narrative because of Dwayne Cunningham, because Dwayne kept telling them, you're getting her wrong. It is about a love story. She did not make any money off these chimps. She spent money on those chimps. She dedicated, 4 years up there to taking care of those chimps. And I mean, cleaning cages to buying produce to everything. That was her whole life for 4 years. And she had no shame in her game. She's not the
You
one.
didn't. I mean, Connie,
Right.
just to be fully transparent, I mean, Connie did make a lot of money off of the monkeys for
Oh,
years.
yes,
I mean, she made
yes,
a fortune, I mean,
for
whether
sure.
she still has it or not, but, she did make a lot of money,
Yes. But I didn't, and that's what he was trying to explain to them, that I'm not really like that, and I'm not the one that reaped any benefits, or I'm not the one that put them in that position to begin with.
Mm.
I just wanted to keep them in the only home they built. You know, that facility was built on money that they made, the Chimps made. That's their facility, even though Connie owns it because it's a piece of property, but it was money that the Chimps worked for, and they bred babies to get money for babies that built that facility, so that's their home. And I wanted them to be able to live there for the rest of their life and have a good life, and I did want to beef it up, and I was more than willing to do that. But again, you have to have time. You have to be able to fundraise. You have to, just like any other
Yeah.
sanctuary. They started fundraising for them kids before they even got down there. If you go look at Center for Great Apes' webpage, they were begging for money before they even hit that facility, knowing they were coming. So they just
And
had
what
to give us an
happened?
opportunity.
What do you feel PETA just didn't give you and Connie enough time to raise money? And because PETA says in the documentary that their side of the story is they did give you guys enough time, but you didn't make the improvements, I guess, that they wanted to see for the chimps to safely live there. So what do you say to that?
And that was a whole lie. That whole line and that whole part of that documentary is a big lie. And I can prove that easily by going and looking at the consent decree that PETA and I signed, which is a court document that they uphold me to. And one of the provisions is, yeah, and mind you, I'm the one, because the judge said it was going to get sticky with adding me to the lawsuit, because it had already been going on for 3 to 4 years prior to me being joined. I got joined because I took over ownership in 2018, December 18th of 2018. And they said because I own them, that they couldn't get the ends to justify the means unless I was added to the lawsuit. So the judge denied it twice. But then the third time, she granted it. So she told us in the very beginning that, and this was when COVID was going on. So we did like Zoom hearings and that type stuff, and said it's going to get very sticky and it can be very messy and probably lengthy. And it would be in all of our best interest if we would come up with some kind of an agreement. So I'm the one who reached out to them the very first thing to say, okay, I'm willing to give up 4 of the chimpanzees if you take, let me have 3. I want Tonka and I want his 2 younger girls. And I said, I can even tell you why. It's because they are his daughters, but they lived in Connie's house. They did not live amongst other chimps, except those 2 girls were housed together. They drank out of water bottles instead of like a Lixit. So that's the only how they knew to acquire water. They did not know how to be around other chimpanzees because they had never been around other than each other. That is it. So I felt like to throw them into a sanctuary would be so traumatic to those 10 and 11-year-old girls that I just couldn't bear the thought of letting them have to endure that kind of exchange. And I was afraid they would get hurt because they don't know how to be a chimpanzee. So I chose those 2, and I chose Tonka, of course, because Tonka was older. He had, no matter what they're saying, he had congestive heart failure. We have echocardiograms that we had did 3 years in a row, and it shows the heart getting more enlarged each year that we did the echocardiograms. And so with that said, I was like, he needs to stay. He had been in movies and stuff his whole life. He had been with trainers his whole life in a home type setting, and he needed to be with people of his own kind, whether they agree with it or not. So I chose those 3 chimpanzees and was willing to give up the other 4. And they said, and I said, I wanted to leave them at Connie's, but then they came back with, you can't leave them at Connie's because the history is so bad there and yada, yada, yada. So they came back with, okay, you can keep 3 chimpanzees. We'll take the 4 chimpanzees. Then you have to build a facility. And they gave me the dimensions of the outbuild, the night caging. And then it had to have a primadone of 30 feet. And you can look at the provisions. It's plainly in a court document. I had to have a veterinarian come out 1 time per month. I had to have all of this stuff done from the ground up. They gave me 6 months with 2 months that could be added if if they if seemed it was necessary or appropriate for me to get the 2 months extension. Okay, I went straight to work. I went to Bloomfield, Missouri, because they have no restrictions and no building permits, so you didn't have to wait for 30 days for somebody to come out and inspect and, you know, do all that stuff. I just started buying a piece of property way out in the middle of BFE where I wouldn't even send my dog to, but I was going to live there with these 3 chimpanzees just so I could keep them. And I did that. And I even showed them pictures of the excavating outside, all this stuff. And what happened, COVID hit. And if you look at the
Right.
time, I can prove it. Look at the date that it was signed and the day that they started putting restrictions and the day that building supplies started staying out in ships instead of coming into the ports. It was not doable. Bricklayers, block layers for the cinder block was like 6 months out. There was no way it could have been done by, I don't care if you had multi-billions. It's not about the money, which I didn't have multi-billions, but it wasn't about that. It was about ascertaining the goal. I could not do if they paid me. I knew it was coming down the pike. So I asked to have a meeting. So we had a meeting via the phone with PETA, and I begged them for an extension, and they would not even remotely.
Okay, having all these years interacted with PETA, what do you think their ultimate to me, I think their ultimate goal is, right? They want to make it so difficult for a lot of you exotic pet owners. And I have to say, just personally, it is difficult because I do believe most of these animals should be out in the wild. However,
Right,
you weren't doing anything illegal in your state because different states have different rules.
right.
But what do you think their purpose is? Because to me, I think they just want to make it so hard for you all that are remaining primate owners to deter others from even from doing it. What do you think?
Their ultimate goal, because Brittany Pete has stated this, and so has Ingrid, that they want no animals to be around humans, period. They started out with the ESA animals because they could use the endangered species clause, a civilian clause, because it's an easy way to drag people through courts. They know that people cannot have the monies, that the treasure chest that PETA does. So eventually they don't even go to court. They get default judgments and they yank your animals away from you. End of story. Okay. They just did a press conference, which somebody just sent me the link to today, with Chimp Northwest and PETA. And they're already announcing that they're going after Doc Antle's chimps today. And they're actually going after this private owner that lives in Missouri today, and they're supposed to be doing some campaigning on her first, starting today. So it's not speculation. It's obvious what they're doing. I mean, they're actually giving you a roadmap as to what they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, they
And
do. Yeah,
so
yeah,
so it's not me and you talking out of turn. It's actual facts. They don't mind telling you that they think that this should be done. This is their agenda. This is going to be done. So they're basically a dictator, and they have so much money and so much pull that they have. Politicians in their pockets. They have all these people in their pockets, and they do so many slim, shady things, but they do it in a gray area to where it actually is legal. But if anybody else tried it, they wouldn't get by with it. But they do this stuff because they want no animals to be in anyone's care. They're starting with the exotics first, but don't think that it's going to stop there. It's going to be your cats, your dogs, your everything else, because their statement is they don't believe any animal should be with people. Period. End of story.
oh wow, I never thought about that. That they would
It's
cover.
going to trickle down, because think about it. They started with big cats, they started with the chimps, and now they're trying to pass the Primate Safety Act, and they're just trying to, and look at what they did to the circuses with the elephants, and look at what they did. They took Barnum and Bailey animal crackers by Nabisco, and made them take off the bars because animals should be free.
Yeah, that was seems like a waste of time.
They're nutty. They're nuts. If you look at some of their campaigns where they've got 2 gay guys laying in bed with a raw chicken in the middle of them, tell me that's not a little off. I mean, seriously. And people are donating to save these dogs and these cats from, these bad positions. And guess what? That's not where their money is going. And that's what I want to do is start. My biggest goal right now is to pass legislation to prevent Eric Goode and anybody like the Eric Goodes to be able to trick people into filming and being able to have the rights to make money off of somebody else's story that they have no rights to do, and then them not have to even compensate them. And when the devastation occurs at the end of the filming, they just walk away and they devastate people's lives. I think there needs to be some ownership there. And I think something needs to be done to prevent that from happening to anybody else.
Are you guys already, it's a 4-part series. Are they already trying to talk to you about, are they going to do an episode 5, 6?
Yes, Eric, they're not really trying to talk to me, but Eric kind of threw it out there to me in a text that maybe we should do a 5. I didn't even respond. I'll be honest with you. I skipped over it and I went on to something else that I was hollering at. But anyways.
Let's talk about Tonga. Tonga is still alive. He
Mhm,
was brought down to a sanctuary in Florida
mhm,
where he lives
uh-huh.
now. Why haven't you been able to see him? It's been 2 years. Why haven't you been able to see him?
You asked me that question, and if you can get the answer for me, I'd like to have that answer because I have a consent decree that is signed by PETA and myself that says I am allowed, Connie Casey is allowed, I am allowed to see all of those chimps within a 14-day notice. I have to give a 14-day notice of the facility, and I have to follow the facility rules while I'm there. And I have reached out to Jared Goodman and I've saved those emails and I've sent them to even Eric Goode, where I have requested on 4 different occasions for him to help me facilitate a visit with, even before Tonka, but the other kids down at Center for Great Apes as well. And I get absolutely nowhere. I've tried to call Patty Reagan. They will not even, they take the message, but they never ever respond to me. So I believe they're in contempt, and I believe they should be charged with contempt charges, just like they get me every single chance I get for contempt. But nobody wants to listen to me and nobody wants to help me. So I'm just stuck in limbo. They throw other things at you like legality issues, legal issues, and trying to get your USDA license taken from you and all this stuff because of the Tonka situation. But they're not accountable. Nobody holds them the same accountability that they hold me for that same piece of paper.
Is it I'm assuming it's a private facility, like they don't allow the public in, or is it for
Save the
some
Chimps
people?
does. I don't know about Save the Chimps, I'll be honest with you, but I know Center for Great Apes has days. They even have cabins that you can go stay at their facility. They've allowed Connie to go 2 or 3 times to see those kids, and she has actually got to eyeball Tonka too, but they won't allow me to.
What's your I guess if we were just putting our conspiracy hats on, why do you think that they won't let you see him?
Um, well, first of all, because I've made a challenge that that I want to bring him home. And since you guys really are so insisting that that's what he would want, because everybody says, what would Tonka want? I said, just let me prove it to you. If you guys think I'm a crazy nut lady, let me go ahead and get my transporter cage, no sedation drugs, which took them 45 minutes to get him sedated with a whole crew of people here at my house while he's screaming the whole time. Let me just take my transporter cage, go out and say, hey, Tonka, do you want, and I'll walk up to him and say, hey, Tonka, do you want to go home? If so, come on. And if he gets in that transporter cage of his own free will, no sedation whatsoever, and he sits there for me to slide that big heavy door on there, then that means he does want to go home and they should let me take him home.
Mm.
And they can have their social media, they can have PETA there, they can have God there, they can have anybody, Eric Goode there, they can have everybody there that they want. And if it makes me out to be a fool, which I know it won't, I'm 100% self-assured, but it will make them look like fools.
Tanya, in the documentary, did you ever feed the chimps any other food aside from McDonald's? Every scene they show you giving the
I know it, but let me tell you this.
are constantly showing you feeding them. It's almost like McDonald's is sponsoring.
Yeah.
So wait, and like, can you tell us, like, did you feed them other things? Because they constantly show you giving the monkeys a Powerade.
You want to hear
Like,
something ironic? Eric Goode's the one who bought every one of those Happy Meals they showed.
better at not. He
They
better
did. The
not.
film crew went out that day because that was the eve of them leaving, the chimps leaving. So we decided we're all gonna make it the best day that we possibly could for those chimps the day before they left. They went out, got the Happy Meals, got those Powerades, and brought them and some beer to give them to the facility. And the beer never got given to them, but the Powerades and the Happy Meals that you're seeing are ones that was bought and paid for by Eric Goode. So yes, my kids had plenty of fresh produce, and PETA knows that because this is the irony to all of this, and this is what I want people to know that nobody's allowed me to say, but when we signed that consent decree, I had to keep their 4 chimps until they could get cages built and could move those chimps. So even though Connie and I were so abusive that we did not deserve to keep those chimps, I had to caregive for those chimps from whatever, I think it was September when we signed that consent decree, but don't hold me. I'm not saying that's 100% truth, but I'm pretty sure it was in September. I had to keep them till the following July 27th when they came in and got them. And I was supposed to send them receipts for the food that I bought from the produce place and for part of their electric. So PETA wrote me checks every month for for what I spent, the expense of what I spent on their 4 chimps. Okay, so I'm like, I did it once just to get a check. I never did cash the check because I didn't want to. I just did it. Actually, I gave it to Connie. I take that back. But the reason why I did was just so I could have a check that said to Tonia Haddix from PETA, a big PETA on there, just so I could post it to say money from the devil on my Facebook page, because it's irony that they don't think I'm a good caregiver, but I could caregive for their chimps. And what's funny about it is they I got to the point to where I was sick of them, and I was sick of them badgering me every single month, that I finally put a motion into the federal court saying that they're going against my constitutional right, that they're holding me as indentured servants, because I told them, just come get your kids, just come get them. And I'm not going to caregive for them anymore. Come get them. And, the judge would not even answer or respond to that. She never did rule on that motion that I put into the courts. So I feel like that they rimrodded me all around, even with the consent decree, because again, people don't realize they stayed at our facility and we still caregive for their chimps, even though they thought we were just horrible people. So there's just so much to this story that could be told that just doesn't sound right. Because if the welfare came in, social services came in to take a kid to place them in foster care, if they were in intimate danger like they tried to portray the chimps were, they sure wouldn't have left a kid there for almost a year, whenever it's convenient for them to pick them up type thing.
Do you have any regrets? I mean, do you? Do you have any regrets?
Yes, I do. First of all, I regret lying to the federal court judge because she didn't deserve that. Honestly, she didn't. And I, that just was something that I felt desperate, because I just underestimated PETA. I thought when PETA got their victory by accumulating the 6 chimps that was hauled out of there, and that I had told them Tonka died, that they would have left well enough alone. I figured that they could still claim their victory, collect their funds that they get for donations, and move on. I had no idea that they were ate up with me, that they absolutely are obsessed with me, and I had no idea that it was going to go to that extreme. So I didn't have a game plan set. So I flew by the seat of my pants, and I'm not going to lie, I just got desperate as to how I was going to handle, having Tonka disappear. So that was what happened, and how that even got derived was my vet Tonka had an episode in May, and he had got stuck on a tunnel back in the pink room for almost 2 weeks because he would not come down. And I knew something was wrong with him, but I didn't know what. I called my vet immediately. He said, okay, we need to get him assessed, but we need to get him off that tunnel. And I'm like, okay. So we started working slowly but surely on getting him to come down off that tunnel. But in the interim, I had to climb that ladder 2 or 3 times a day to offer him food and water because he would not come down, and I wasn't going to starve him. So I would, even though I'm afraid of heights, would climb that 14-foot ladder, me and Connie's daughter, to make sure he was, fully fed and definitely had hydration. And finally, we built planks that allowed him to take one step at a time and come down. And then we finally got him into the front of the facility, which is a smaller cage and it's short, so that he could be safely darted. Because if we would have darted him up there on that 14-foot tunnel, he could have broke his neck because it's concrete below and metal bars. So I mean, we had no choice but to try to, work his way down. And finally, he felt good enough. But in the interim, Casey had given me some medicines like Lasix and some gabapentin and some stuff, and it had me give Tylenol and stuff for pain and that type stuff. So when we finally did get to do an assessment, he had congestive heart failure and he had, we think, a stroke, but by then, there's no true signs because it had been too long, but his elbow had been shattered where he had either fallen or whatever. And so he had a very bad break in his shoulder, which I have x-rays from. So he was in bad shape. And that's when Casey asked me, he said, quality of life versus quantity of life. And he said, maybe, you ought to think about euthanizing Tonka at that point. And of course, I broke out into tears because I'm a crybaby. And I said, I can't do it. I said, let's see what happens. And let's let him have the quality of life that he deserves as much as he deserves. And let's see if more days are quality than not. And I'll make that decision at that point. So he said, okay, I'll check back with you in 2 weeks. Well, I just drug it on and drug it on and drug it on because I just couldn't do it. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not afraid to do that because with my little Down syndrome capuchin, I did just that when he got to where he was scared and he was distorted and he was hydrocephalic and pressure was being put on his brain and he was in pain. So I'm not opposed to doing it if I feel like that it's needed. But I just had it in my gut that I just didn't think Tonka needed that. So that's when, because Casey had written a letter to the courts to Jerry Good, or for Jerry Goodman, that he felt that Tonka's health had declined and that he was in bad shape. So it kind of put a light bulb in my head that I could make sure Connie wasn't around and make sure nobody else was accountable except me, and that I could just say I found him dead. And that's how that got started.
Yeah. But you regret basically, do you regret making that up kind of? I mean, that was a big
Yeah.
lie. You can
Yes, I
your
do.
husband, well, you gotta, and your husband and your kids. I mean, you certainly have a clearly you must be a good person because you got a lot of people willing to lie for you. I mean, they must love you
They
a
knew how
lot.
much I loved him. They knew that he was my whole life, and he really was. He was. I would sit out on the couch with him. See, he got to come out with just me and him because I never worried about him hurting me. I just didn't want somebody else to be in the firing shots in case something would happen. And so me and him would sit on the couch and he'd lay his head on me. And, you got to realize he's got this big old feet. He's a big boy, and he'd put his arm around me and he'd just rock back and forth and he'd channel surf the channels and he'd want to play tickle and I'd chase him around the thing. And I mean, we had a life that was different than what people portray, that he was in this little cage 24/7 and he was there for
Yes.
a year, which he wasn't. He was
That's the way they
outside.
portray it. They portray it
Yes.
that these animals are just caged up 24/7 in these tiny cages.
No, no. And that's the thing. Tonka was definitely trustworthy with me. And so we had a good time. And so he was very close to me. I mean, I would sit down there whenever I'd come, even when he was at Connie's, and I'd come home after like a 3 or 4 day haul, transporting exotics to different zoos or to people that bought exotics. I would, first thing, I wouldn't even go to bed. I would just go see Tonka. And he'd sit there and he'd always have that tongue out and he'd always wag it. And he'd always want to do his tricks for me. He always did. He could do 3 backflips in a row. And he just he loved people and he was the love of my life. And so, to be honest with you, I do regret how it transpired. Would I have thought something else, or would I have tried to do something differently as I think about it today? Absolutely. Do I think I did something that I'm not proud of? Absolutely. Do I regret keeping him? No, because I would have tried to protect him at all costs. But just how it played out was not, it was not good. It was
Um,
not good.
People have asked this question online. Do you really sedate a chimp like with the blow dart? Did you really do that to get him
You
sedated, or
you can, but I don't. Connie did, but I don't. I don't have to sedate Tonka. I can get him to go into a transporter cage. But if you do have animals, and that includes tigers, lions, bears, or anything that would be considered wild and dangerous, they can dart to sedate. Zoos do it. Everybody does it. If you watch Dr. Pol on
oh yeah,
Animal
yeah,
Planet,
DLC?
you notice they sedate in the zoos to bring them in to have vet visits and that type stuff. They do it for just safety reasons, just for precautionary measures. So we're not the only ones that would do it, at all zoos or anybody, but they have dart guns, actual CO2 guns that can put darts in somebody. But the old rule of thumb is to blow dart, because the darts don't hurt as bad going in. And Connie's a softie. I mean, I'm telling you, Connie is a softie, and she just could not stand a CO2 cartridge going into them, because it does hurt it's a lot stronger, more powerful hit whenever they get hit.
So was that a reenactment? That was a reenactment. Like when
Yeah, that was not us at
okay,
all.
that's not how you brought
No,
Tonka.
they were not even around. So no, they did not see that. Yeah. So no, that's what I said. They put a lot of stuff in there for all intents and purpose, more drama or more effect to get that, suspense from the crowd and stuff, so that it looks like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
because if
you
you
all
did
should win a Golden Globe. I hope you're going to the Golden Globes after all this. I mean, my God, it was so good. Uh, Let me ask you this though. Where are you at? Has your opinion changed about chimp ownership in the United States, which is going to happen probably less and less? But in the documentary, I mean, they really juxtapose you and Tonka as this ticking time bomb like Buck in Oregon, who ends up attacking the owner's daughter, and she's calling the owner's calling 911, telling the police, you're going to have to kill him, you're going to have to kill him. A lot of people feel that she just wanted Buck gone,
she
and
did
police did kill him. And then of course, that infamous Travis in Connecticut, which was
Connecticut.
so wild, I mean, PETA really says, I mean, they are wild animals. What do you think? I mean, are chimps, they're volatile. They really only love their mothers. I don't know. Seems like it is a dangerous animal.
And, they can't any species, including a zebra, can be wild
And a
if
dog. How many dogs maul people every year to death?
exactly, exactly.
Yes.
So given the right set, yeah, and a cat can hurt you too. I mean, if a cat scratches you and you don't get antibiotics, you can die from cat scratch fever. I mean, there is so many ifs. If everybody sat around and contemplated what all animals could do to a human being, nobody would own them. So you know what? Considering how many chimps are left in the U.S., including in the sanctuaries, I'm going to tell you right now, not any more dangerous than the pit bulls that are out there, or the other dogs that are attacking people every day. Just Google pit bull attacks
All the
in
time.
the
I know.
U.S.
Every state. I know. And
And kids
mauled
are
to
being
death.
killed by pit bulls and stuff. So if they want to get technical and they want to like get statistics, let's get statistics. There's not that many chimps left. I can only think of like 50 or less that are left in private sector.
How's the exotic community reacted to you since this? Tell me about that, because I got to imagine the exotic community. Obviously, that's how Dwayne was able to gain your trust, and you knew the guy in Ohio. I mean, you didn't know him, but through a person that I have to imagine y'all are a tight knit community. How have they responded to the documentary and to you?
Well, of course, they get scared because, somebody infiltrated us that should not have. And I'm the one who brought them into the fold, so to speak. So there are some that are angry. With all due respect, if I was in their position, I would feel the same way. So I'm not upset with them for that, because we've got to protect each other and we've got to help each other. And so with that said, I made a mistake. And even though I did not know, I was not aware, it wasn't like I did it on purpose or that I was fully aware of who they were and that type stuff. I still did. And so I can understand why they would be upset with me, and they are. And, the primate people are too, because, the Primate Safety Act, they feel like that this is why Eric did it. Part of a reason is to get that primate safety bill enforced and passed. And with all understandings, I understand why they would be upset, because you know what? I love the primates as much as they do, and I would do anything to try to prevent that from happening. So, I understand it's a big shell shock, especially when you watch how crazy that drama folds out and how crazy it seems. I would be upset if I was in their shoes too. And so I've had a lot of hate, and then I've had a lot of good support from people that I've helped in the monkey community for, paying vet bills, or for even carrying a monkey for them, because they didn't have the money right away, and I spotted them even though I didn't know them, because that's just the kind of, I'm trusting. I'm just a good
I
I
know
try
you
to be a
are.
good
That's
person.
the thing that broke my heart a little bit. I was telling you this when you and I talked. I've been in entertainment for a long time, and you are the perfect person, unfortunately, for a documentary, because you wear your heart on your sleeve. You'll say it all, and you trust people when they say they're going to
Yeah.
do something. And unfortunately, that's like the worst thing you can do in entertainment, because I mean,
I get it.
we didn't know each other. I didn't know you then, but where I have a couple more questions, although I could literally talk to you for 3 hours. So tell me about, okay, you still run. I mean, your home is beautiful in Missouri, and you run Sunrise Beach Sanctuary. How's the sanctuary been? Are people coming? You kind of have like a petting zoo, right? I mean, there's camels. There's
Yeah, it's called
okay.
Sunrise Beach Safari, and yes, we do have it's a small petting zoo, but it's exotic petting zoo, so it's not your farm animal type petting zoo. It's camel, kangaroo, wallaby, muntjac deer, cavies, that type, llamas, that type stuff. So you can hand feed and pet them, and because they all have been bottle babies, so they're all docile, and they all love the attention too, because they were raised that way. And then we do encounters. We do sloth encounters and baby monkey encounters and that type stuff. And it's been a good business. It's only been in business for a year, and that was my goal, was to get out of brokering exotics, and just concentrating on the petting zoo, and just trying to make a life and being at home more, because I'm not young anymore. I'm old, and I just decided I don't need to be on the roads, and I'm okay with just having the few animals, and we don't have anything crazy, no tigers, no, none of that type stuff. And, we want just to be able to live a normal life and enjoy the lake in the evenings, whenever, the petting zoo, or like on the days we're off, to go get on a boat ride and go to one of the lake bars here, and, enjoy the people and that type stuff. And that was our goal. And Pete is trying to do anything to stop that, because they've got me on their 10 most wanted list, as saying that, I still endanger animals by allowing human contact with animals. And
Really,
they
your
do.
facility looks gorgeous online. I
And
mean,
and if
it's
you look at my Google
pretty
reviews, except
amazing.
yeah, if you look at my Google reviews, where they're true reviews, lately I've been hit by AR, and you can see it's a 1, but they say, well, sloth should not be held or whatever. So that's an AR comment, and it's not a true review. But if you look at my true reviews and the pictures, everybody loves it. They enjoy it so, so much. I've made people cry with bucket lists because they got to hold a sloth, you know. And so it's a happy time. It's an enjoyable thing, because nobody walks away disgruntled. It's, they're happy, and you do a good job, and you feel good when you, at the end of the day, and you can shut up and go to eat, that a lot of people were very, very thrilled with their encounter or their experience. And it's so nice to be able to be on that side of it, instead of, people being disgruntled. So
Well, I mean,
yeah.
there's an argument to be made, which is what zoos have always said, is that keeping a small number of animals well cared for in captivity teaches people about conservationism and why it's important that we keep, natural habitats for these animals alive, and, why you should care, and getting people exposed to these animals. In fact, there's a positive to it, where people have more empathy because they get to be up close with these animals and see their personalities and little souls they have and all these things. So, I keep reading. I mean, is there a new lawsuit against you? There is these outstanding court hearings, and maybe you can tell us when they're coming up with PETA. I think they're trying. You owe 240,000 maybe to PETA. They want to put you
Well,
in
it
jail.
may be 240 now. It was 225. That's what the judge awarded, but of course, interest and whatever else. So it could be 240. I don't really know the number.
And
Um,
this is for being held in contempt. This is being in lying to the judge, right? They really want to come after you for that, for the story of Tonka. They
right.
really want to hold you accountable to deter other people from doing it, right? But the judge has thrown that out, basically saying, I can't even remember what they said. But anyhow, it's so, but they're still trying to pursue that, right? And is there
Right.
anything
They
else?
they they sent a letter to the judge, I guess, the other day because somebody sent it to me in LA Times that they're trying to have that case reopened and or trying to get her to go ahead and pursue charges after the in light of the documentary. So basically, Eric Goode and them, their documentary is causing PETA to bring be stirred up or
Well,
whatever
Eric
to get.
needs to pay the fine. I would say, Eric, look, I'm the star. You write the check. I mean,
Guess what? We had a long discussion over that when that
well,
happened back in the day. And Eric says no because they would have found Tonka. So he doesn't feel he's responsible for that. Like I said, Eric is kind of funny. Some days I could like him, and then there's some days I could absolutely just choke him.
yes.
Because Eric likes to please people. And I think he doesn't know how to be harsh to somebody, so he always tries to like negate things by like saying, "I'll buy you a trip to Africa when this is all over." Seriously, I just got a text. So he tries to do nice things because I do think Eric Goode might have a good heart, but I think he also is so mixed up inside as far as what side of the fence he actually belongs on. And I'm not sure Eric knows himself. And so that's the sad part. The sad part of it is I can't hate Eric. Everybody wants me to hate Eric, but I can't hate him. Well, I'm just not that type of person. There's only one entity in this whole world that I hate, and that's
Jared
PETA.
Goodman. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jared Goodman, Pee Wee Herman, he's part of PETA, but I do that, and that's
all of him. By the way, I'm going to send you the meme because somebody, and it's gotten, I don't know how many hundreds of retweets, but someone wrote my favorite TV character. Or my favorite character on TV is this cunty PETA lawyer, Jared Goodman.
Goodman.
And I just thought, cunty sums him up. He looks cunty, and he
And
is
he's
just,
mean. He is mean to the core. He is so condescending
you
against
can tell he's very smug. Yes.
and he is just so nasty, but I understand he no longer works for PETA.
Oh, excuse me. What
Yes,
happened?
that's Jeremy McBride, Eric Good's little partner, told me that he no longer works for PETA, which
Oh,
I hope is the truth, but I don't
interesting.
know. I have not got to have that confirmed, but that's what I was told just recently, about a month ago. So, yeah.
Um, Two last questions for you. Alan Cumming, very famous actor who worked with Tonka, felt this passion to find Tonka, offered a $10,000 reward. Have you ever heard from him since the documentary came out? He's in the documentary and obviously very popular now on TV as the host of Traders. Anything from Alan?
No, Alan has never contacted me. In fact, I want to have a sit down with him because at first I was so resentful in the beginning of the lawsuit toward him. But as I watched him on the documentary, I have to have some um camaraderie with him because we both had a love for Tonka. The only questions that I have is Tonka did that movie in 1994, and then he was gone for all those years. And if he had such a love for him, like he portrays he did, and has his little finger or his handprints on his mantle and stuff, if he did, then why didn't he check on him a lot sooner? Because that's like 20 some years. I mean, mind you, that's not like yesterday. In fact, 30 years, right?
Yeah, and he would
Um,
have known where Tonka would have been, right? Because he would have been with Connie Casey
Right.
all
If
these
he would
years.
have, because yeah, because Connie got him at 10 years old. So, and Tonka's 34. So that's 20 some
Mm.
years, 20 plus years, say 20 to be on the safe side. So we're not, whatever. But why did he not contact him sooner? See, so then I want to have a sit down my own self with them to get a feel, because sometimes I think, okay, is that BS? And is it because PETA's paid him for campaigns? I mean, look at all the campaigns he's doing for PETA, and he's being paid for it because that's how PETA works. And so is it because he's drawing money and he's getting publicity because he was washed up as an actor and he's just regaining, a momentum to get all these people? Or is it that he really has? I would love to know. And only how I think I would know is to get to have a podcast. Maybe you could invite him on at the
I
same
will.
time and have a podcast with him, because I would like to know the truth, to be
I
honest with you.
would love to host a podcast with you and Alan Cumming, and even more so for the two of you to go down to the sanctuary in Florida and be reunited for an afternoon with Tonka. I mean, can you imagine? Eric Goode will probably beat me to it, but can you imagine? That'd be a good one.
Eric Good ain't gonna beat you to it. He just told me that to dangle that carrot to get me to be his puppet, because he knew I loved him so much. I would have did anything, because he knows I never would have filmed with him, knowing it's Eric. After that, if I wouldn't have thought that I was going to get to see my boy, and I at the time I needed, I had to hire a attorney for that possible criminal case, and I mean, monies was being poured out right and left, and and I know that they will call me a liar and say that they did not help me with attorney fees, that they bought my pictures. Same difference. It's a half a dozen of one and a dozen of another. I have a text from Dwayne saying that Eric's going to call my attorney's office, so they can play it however they want. Because he asked me, he said, "Why are you lying on interviews?" Eric, how am I lying? So he gave me two examples, and I said, okay, I'm going to clarify, because I use the word scripted. Whenever somebody asked me what I think of the documentary, I said it's scripted. So he says, well, we didn't give you a script. No, Eric. And I said, so I'm going to clarify what I consider scripted, not maybe the technical term of scripted. Scripted is where it's not a documentary that you just go out and go into the wild and take these videos and then you present it. What they do is piece things together to make a narrative to their narrative, not necessarily how it really went. So to me, that's scripted. Or if they make me re-say a phrase 50 times to get it right the way they want me to say it, or they want me to go back in a door 50 times because they didn't like the way the conversation went or whatever, to me, that's scripted. That's cheeky, scripted, whatever word you want to use. But I did tell Eric yesterday, I will clarify what I'm considering scripted, because he was accusing me of lying because he did not hand me a manual that has a script in it.
You alluded to it a little while earlier, but it sounds like you are going to get out of the exotics, or that is your goal. So can you talk to
Yeah.
us about that? Because I think that's probably where two people are giving you a lot of heat still, is you do still broker small monkeys, right? Is that like if people want to
Yes.
buy? Okay, so
Yeah.
where are you at with that? Do you want to get out of it? Do you feel differently about it?
At the I don't feel differently about it. I think that people should have the right to own a monkey if they provide good husbandry, and if they're good owners, and if it's legal for where they own them at. Now, I'm okay with that, but I was wore out with it while I was trying to help Connie. I just hustled to be able to provide for the chimps and stuff. And so, but once I got the safari, that was our goal, was for me to stop. And honestly, since I've had the safari open a year, I have hardly brokered very much at all, because if it's a repeat customer or somebody that's looking for something that I know, I did that part. But I've not been advertising, and I've not just put myself out there, because I really, really was kind of disgusted with it ultimately anyways, just because of the stuff with the chimps and that type stuff. And so I was already phasing myself out anyways. As far as the brokering part, I just wanted to be able to just have the safari and just run in and just enjoy life, because I'm 55, I'm not young. And so
Young.
I wanted to wind down. Well, thank you, but I don't feel young. But I wanted to just wind down and just have my own exotics and just love what we do and just enjoy that part of it. So yeah, I was already phasing out anyways.
All right, well, let's end on something fun. We are obsessed with your look. People, we
Well,
are all
thank you.
obsessed. We love, where do you buy your wigs? We want to know.
Online, to be honest with you. And it's funny, I
We
just find one that I like and I
I
just
love
go
it.
with it. Yep, and I may change it. It's funny, I don't wear them for very long, and I just throw them away and get different ones. That's why you'll see me with different color, and I'll try because some people like me in dark hair, some people like me as a blonde, and so I'll try what somebody suggests, but then I always end up going back to kind of the same basic, but I'll try anything once.
Tanya, the guy that does your lip injections, has he been inundated with business? Everybody is obsessed with him. They're like, is she getting lip injections from a guy with his hat turned backwards?
And he's a nurse practitioner out of St. Louis, Missouri, named Zach. He's a really nice guy, but I don't use him anymore because I moved to the lake. But he did text me whenever he found out that the documentary came out and congratulated me. And he was kind of hoping he would have been a piece of it because, we didn't know what they were going to piece together. So he was thrilled when he got to. So I haven't texted him yet to see if he did get inundated with business, but he is a nurse practitioner that just does that type stuff. So yeah, really nice guy.
Tanya, we are obsessed with the lip color, your eyelashes that you do. I mean, you do a lot of upkeep on yourself. You take very good care of yourself.
Thank you, thank you.
And
Well, I've been made fun of for that too, but I
oh,
don't
fuck
care.
them. Don't listen to anything. I mean, I feel like if people can't watch that, okay, yes, you lied. I disagree with that part, right?
And I do too. I'm not proud of it. Trust me, I'm not.
And I've told you, I think PETA does have some good points. Sounds like you agree to some. You've known animal owners of all kinds, I'm sure we all have, right? Some people should
Right,
not own any animal, dog, cat, the whole thing. But
right.
I feel like anyone the moment I saw you, you could tell there was just such an innocence about you, like even just trying to help Connie, like you just give so much. And what I hate about life sometimes is, it is that old saying. What is the I can't even think of the old saying, but like no good deed goes unpunished.
Was
I
that,
hate that
yep.
saying, but sometimes it's true. And like I just fell in love with you when I saw you because I thought, oh no, it's like that saying's coming true. Like she has every good intention. And then, I mean, just the way you would treat Jared Goodman was epic. I mean, it was so funny with the doll. And the fact that you would be like, I fucking hate him. And the judge would be like, ma'am, we can still hear you on Zoom. Tanya, I just rolled. You have so much personality. So if people don't see that, fuck them. Don't read the stuff. You're gorgeous. You're an icon. I hope everything works out just better than you can imagine. And hopefully good things come for you out of this. And Tonka's still alive and doing well. And someday hopefully you can see him.
And I'm glad he is. I mean, kid yourself not. I'd rather him be home, but I mean, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I just want my boy to be okay. That's it.
Yeah.
And as long as he was okay, I was okay. Just like if they would have let us go down and transfer him down there so he didn't think we abandoned him and we didn't want him and that type stuff, I would have been much better with the situation than them just starting him and him waking up down there and in a strange place without even his other chimps that he knew and that type stuff. It can be handled differently. If PETA feels they have to further their agenda, I can't stop them anyways, obviously. They beat my butt all over the courts. So all I can say is they just need to take them animals into consideration and be courteous to the animals, even if they hate us as animal people. Take the animals into consideration.
Yeah.
Don't wake them up from the only home they ever know and the only caregiver and send them down to this new place and let them be scared. And don't give them a blanket and don't let them have snacks because you know what? I'm sorry, Tonka got an ice cream sandwich and a hot blanket every night before he went to bed and a kiss goodnight. And, other people may not agree with that, but that's what we did in our household. And it is what it is. Again, I'm not saying promote new ones or that type stuff, but I just wish that they would just leave the old ones alone.
Me too. I walked away from that documentary and I thought it's too bad they don't ever use some of their money to go, okay, we'll help, like sign an agreement. You won't own any more exotics, but we will help you at least get this facility to a place where you can keep these animals until they die. We'll check in as long as you're meeting these requirements. It's too bad they don't take the money to do that instead of I think a lot of people are with you, that it's just such a hard, extreme line, and they'll throw paint on people's old fur coats and all this craziness that, it turns you off, really.
Yeah,
I did
it's
think
sad.
Eric at least did that in the documentary. I did think he doesn't portray them as very likable.
Right. And he did, I do have to say, because me and Jeremy had many talks over this, that they did try to be fair. They said with both sides. And I see them try, I see it in the documentary where they did try. I have to give them credit for that. But when you kind of are afraid of PETA yourself, because Eric Good is afraid of PETA, the sanctuaries are afraid of PETA, because I do know for a fact that Center for Great Apes said that they could do the same thing to them as they did to us by taking pictures and them in the tunnel saying they lived in those small cages, even though they really had large cages. It's interpretation and only what PETA wants to present, how they want to present it, just like Eric did in this documentary. He wanted that. If they just showed my boring story and they didn't spice it up and make me be this
Right.
crazy lady, and that I love the chimps more than I do my kids, that statement, because everybody's beat me up for that. Well, you heard my son knows that I love him, and
He
he
like
knows.
supported you. Yeah, and clearly your husband Jerry, I mean, my God, Jerry rides for you. Lord. I mean, he's willing to do anything for you. I mean, your family loves you. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't
So
feel betrayed by your love for Tonka. No,
no.
I get it. I had a friend that worked for the circus, worked for Barnum and Bailey for years, and she
Right.
always said they took amazing care of the animals. But I think
Absolutely.
they just, I think, knew they weren't going to be able to financially fight PETA. So instead of, she would always say, because she did PR for them, she'd be like, let's go on Good Morning America and show PETA's video and then show what really happened about
Mhm.
how this is why the trainer may like hit the whip at this point. It's not hitting the animal. It looks like it, but it's not. Here's where it landed. Like, and show the facility that they're taken to. But the last group that owned Barnum and Bailey just wouldn't do, I think, because they know PETA, PETA's been at it for what, 25 years? I mean, they've created a heck
Yeah,
of a
almost
lobby.
50. Yeah, I think almost
Almost
50
50.
years.
Okay, well, there you go.
And they're embedded. I mean, they are so deeply embedded, and they have treasure chests of money
Yes.
from people. And I have news for you. If people only knew, just like they haven't they don't have any no kill shelters. They don't have dogs that can be adopted. I challenge everybody, if they believe their money's going towards saving these dogs, call PETA's headquarters and ask them where their adoption center is so they can adopt one of their dogs, and they'll tell you they don't have any. They kill more and more animals every single solitary year.
PETA
And
does?
there's,
They get,
yeah, Google it,
are you
Google it.
sure? Really? We
Oh
gotta
yeah, Google it. Right. I mean, seriously, Google it.
okay, hold on. So Google, so does PETA what? Kill what? Kill
Dogs and cats.
oh, okay, so that actually comes right up. Does PETA kill pit bulls? PETA supports a ban on breeding pit bulls and pit bull mixes, as well as strict regulation on their care. Does PETA support? Let's see. Why is PETA trying to kill pit bulls nationwide? This is from oh, Cora. I think that website. PETA is utterly unconcerned with the ethical treatment, so they can continue to pay their six-figure senior staff. Okay. Is it true that PETA kills 80 to 90% of the animals it takes in? If so, why? First off, I'm an animal loving shelter. Oh, I don't, I got to read more of this.
They do. I guarantee you. And Joe Exotic actually did a live video where he went to Virginia and asked if he could adopt a cat or a dog. And they specifically said, and he had it on video, that there is they don't have any shelters for that.
Oh,
And
wow.
I have a article that somebody sent me that does intelligence. So they do ops and stuff, and where they did a sting back quite some time ago on PETA. And the article, I don't know if it will show up, but here it says, read this.
Okay, wait, hold
What
on.
does that headline say?
PETA employees face 31 felony animal cruelty charges for killing and dumping dogs. This is from Consumer Freedom. Okay, it's
There
Consumer.
you go. There's tons of articles. They stole a dog out of a little 4 or 5 year old girl's yard, held it. The parents begged to get it back, and they didn't. And all PETA had to do, the judge just awarded them to make a public apology. That was it.
Okay, I've gotta look into this because I've gotta
Yep.
wonder, is Consumer Freedom, are they a legit site? This is
It says the Consumer Center for Consumer Freedom team press release, Consumer Freedom, the Center for.
okay, wow. Center for PETA's 25-year anniversary of killing pets. Now, this was published April 13th, 2023.
Mhm.
While animal shelters work tirelessly to rescue pets and unite them with loving families, PETA kills thousands of dogs and cats, according to the latest government filings. Okay, I think you're correct. PETA euthanized 2,092 dogs and cats in 2022, its highest killing year since 2014. What's more, PETA has killed nearly 50,000 animals over the last 25 years in its Virginia shelter.
See?
Wow.
So there's a
Meanwhile,
lot to PETA that needs to be unfolded. A lot.
Meanwhile, oh, wow. Okay, well, people can deep dive this because consumerfreedom.com, you're right, and it appears to be a legitimate site. And they say, meanwhile, PETA's adoption stats are shockingly low. PETA only adopted 58 animals last year, amounting to 2.1% adoption rate. By contrast, its kill rate is 74%.
See?
Okay, why do you think? Wow, this is
But they
crazy.
collect all this money, so that's how they can keep their attorneys on staff to harass American citizens that owns exotics, which to me is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that's why I say I challenge anybody that thinks they know PETA, educate yourself about PETA because they're not who they. And I'm not saying at one time that that organization wasn't set up to do good things. I have no doubt about it. But it's just like they'll show a picture of like that gorilla that's being singly housed over in another country and they're wanting to do something about it, but it's been ongoing for like 6 or 7 years because PETA keeps updates on it. Because I Google PETA all the time. I get on their website and I Google chimps to see what they're doing and see what they're doing across the United States and even in other countries. And they truthfully just amaze you with the stuff that they do. And just like the president at one time listed them as a foreign and domestic terrorist. So they were trying to get their 501(c) taken away, but so they are considered a terrorist, but they still can collect donations and do what they do to American
Well,
citizens.
maybe you'll have an ally. And this is like I'm going down this rabbit hole, but Berman and Co. Apparently, he's a lobbyist, Rick Berman, who runs websites against PETA.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of anti-PETA websites, but nobody can get together because everybody is so strong, especially like in the dairy industry, the pork industry, the exotic industry, the fur industry, and all those. And nobody will all join together as a coalition to fight this big monster that's occurred in the US.
Mm.
And so PETA can always win because nobody stays united. And that's probably, I consider, our biggest downfall for all of us in any kind of animal industry is that we need to get a coalition, stay united, and shoot
Get a
down one
union.
battle at a time.
Start unionizing. It's the best
Yep.
thing you could do. Exotics unionize. If you can get a union going and you're 30,000 strong, then you got power. But yeah, you're right.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. You got
And
they
getting
these
lobbyists
they
and
were
getting
smart
people.
50 years ago. They had a vision and they chipped away, and then here you are. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you have to, it's united in numbers and money. Yes,
It
as
is.
you
It
found
is.
out.
Yep.
Tonya Haddix, I hope, is there anything else you would like to say to people? Is there anything else that you have wanted to put out there and you haven't been able to as we leave you and air this interview?
Not really. I appreciate you giving me the time and I feel comfortable with you because it feels like a chat instead of somebody narrating what I'm supposed to say. And I just want to thank you so much for at least supporting me enough to give me that opportunity. And honestly, I just want people to realize that I did not know that Eric Good was Eric Good. I never would have betrayed any of our industries. That's the least thing that I'd want to do. And I'm living with those demons every day, my own self, let alone being crucified for it. And just that, I just want this to pass as quickly as it can and it to fade out. And I know everybody's like, well, you need to capitalize on it. Well, I just want to survive through it is what I want to
Yeah.
do. So
Well, take care of your mental health because it's a lot when the entire internet and world is coming for you. Take care of your health, your family. That's most important. Your animals that you have. just take good care of yourself because everybody hides behind a keyboard and has an opinion, and it's all
Yeah.
bots now. And you don't know if PETA's bought. I'm not saying that they have or anything like that, but you don't
Right,
know
right.
who's bought bots and sharing things and having, everything is fake now. So, you have to really take care of yourself. And but
Well,
a lot of people do really love you. They love the pictures and just you being yourself and the eyelashes. So we love that.
well, thank you so much, but I appreciate you very much. I do.
Well, I'll reach out to Alan. I'm sure he'll probably tell me to pound sand, but I will give Alan a message him and say, Alan, what about a three-way interview? Tonia Haddix, you, me. Let's all say
Yeah, let's all
it.
do it.
Let's all do it, Alan. We'll make it happen. All right, Tanya, be well. And I don't know, do you want people to come to the safari? Should we promote the safari or you want to wait, do it next time?
I would appreciate them coming. I
Yes,
mean, it definitely helps support the animals that we have and gives us an opportunity to do what we do and come find out for yourself. Because that's what I always tell everybody that says, oh, you are an animal abuser. Come find out for yourself. Everybody will tell you when they walk away, our animals are well cared for. I mean, we've heard it a million times from people just walking through that doesn't even know us. So I encourage them if they want to come see for themselves. I work the front desk. I do not hide employees. It's just me and my husband and one employee that runs the safari. So I'm
front
front
and center.
line of the safari. I am the person that you're going to encounter to pay to get into the safari. So if you have any questions for me, as long as you can treat me with respect, and you may not agree with what I chose and that type of stuff, and I'm okay with that. That's what I've told PETA a million times. But just don't talk down to me and don't treat me like trash. Give me the opportunity to be respected just as much as I'll show you the same respect. So
Absolutely. Safari, sorry, it's Sunrise Beach
Sunrise Beach
Safari.
Safari. Yep.
There's a website, your Facebook page. All right, Tanya, enjoy your afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Too.